Debate over Me Too is front and center in America right now. You both have families. Seeing what has happened to those who have made public allegations of sexual misconduct, would you encourage your own loved ones to report an assault in a highly unfortunate situation if it ever happened?
I think this is a very personal decision. I watched as Dr. Ford made the decision to come forward. It was obviously very painful for her in the Kavanaugh hearings. She debated it for a very long time. She gave a heartfelt testimony about what happened. I believe her. I believe her testimony. And then I watched as the President of the United States made fun of her. I watched as powerful Republican men helped one more powerful Republican man get to an even more powerful position as they closed ranks. And people stood up and said things that were just nonsense. Oh, yes, I believe Dr. Ford, but no, not really. And put someone on the Supreme Court who I think demonstrated openly in the hearing that he should not be there. I would be there for any member of my family. I have been there for friends when they have had to make the decision about whether to come forward. I can only say encouraged by support, but ultimately that is a decision each person makes. I point out to them that every time they do come forward, they make it easier for the next person and they make it harder for abusers. But ultimately, that has to be your own decision.
So you would not give them any advice as to whether they
should
go forward or not?
And explain that if you do go forward, it helps people who are in this situation in the future. It helps to call out the abusers and to change the system. But I think it's really tough. People have to make their own decisions, and I just don't think we should push on people to do it. They have to decide for themselves whether they're willing to
Representative Deal, with your family and the love that you have for your family, would you encourage your own loved ones to report assault in a highly unfortunate situation should it ever develop?
I would. I have two daughters. I can't imagine something happening, but if it did, I would want them to make some sort of public record so that justice could be served in some form or fashion. At the same time, you know, the senators referenced the Kavanaugh hearings as an example of behavior that's reprehensible. And I agree. I think that unfortunately 2 lives were destroyed and the people around them, the justice and Dr. Ford, because somebody in the Senate who had information that could have been handled privately decided to hold it back for political reasons. And one other thing that really we found out recently I think is pretty unconscionable, is the fact that Senator Warren was fundraising illegally using the vote on Justice Kavanaugh, the confirmation vote, to try to raise money for her campaigns. That just came out. You know, that's something that you should not be doing, first of all, when we are having a national discussion about the Supreme Court. It's trying to fundraise off it, but you did, and it turns out it's illegal.
So can I just ask
no, go ahead, please. Yeah.
A question here. I hear Mr. Deal's statement about how wrong it was the way that Dr. Ford was treated, but I don't remember Mr. Deal speaking up when Donald Trump made fun of her. I don't remember Mr. Deal speaking out when the Republicans were actually ramrodding through the Kavanaugh nomination. I may have just missed it, but I don't remember it.
You know, that's because, Senator Warren, I don't look for every opportunity to try to grandstand. You know, I didn't recall you responding to the mayor of Somerville making a pretty negative statement this last week. But the fact of the matter is, that was such an intense moment in our country's history as far as trying to deal with presumption of innocence, the cornerstone of our legal system. And you were willing to throw it right out the window because you were part of the Senate Democrats who were trying to score political points by using poor Dr. Ford's testimony as a way to drag down a man without any corroborating evidence.
So I don't think I quite understand the answer, because I'm looking for the times when you've called out Donald Trump, when he's made fun of someone like Dr. Ford, when he's made fun of someone who's disabled.
I would like to drill down on what Representative Deal said. The fundraising while the vote was being taken on the Kavanaugh hearing, did you or did you not do that?
Actually, I don't know, and I don't know what the I'll
There
have
has
to look.
been an
Isn't there an
ethics-
ethics committee?
Yeah,
Is
there's
there?
an ethics
Complaint?
complaint has been filed about a fundraising email.
Then I will check into it, but I don't know.
Do you have any response to that?
I don't.
Representative Deal? All right, we'll move on to the next one.